Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Real Freedom Podcast, where we talk about building wealth and gaining time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. And one of the things that I've been extremely passionate about, and today's guest is extremely passionate about, is agents becoming investors. And we highlight people who have, had successful agent businesses, people who have been investors, some people investors who have never been agents. But at the same time, you are living in a playground that has a ton of opportunity for you to build wealth. And so today's guest we have is Lorraine Beato, and she's going to talk about her passion, which is agents becoming real estate and investors. And actually, she's wrote the book on it, Flip the Switch from Real Estate Agent to Real Estate Investor. It talks a lot about that. That's going to be a lot of what we chat about today. Just a little bit of a background about her. In the Atlanta area, has had a background trading mortgage-backed securities on Wall Street. She's been an appraiser in New York, enjoys breathing new life into historic properties. Fix and flip is really kind of your niche of what you like doing. And you are under contract, I should mention, on a $5 million self-storage unit. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. You've also led the Atlanta chapter of REN, Women in Real Estate. And really your passion is helping others in terms of investing in real estate. And that's been evident just through our conversations already. So welcome, Lorraine, to the show. We're so excited to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Why don't you just start by sharing a little bit of your background, what you did previous to real estate, and how that led to you getting into real estate?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as you touched on it, I started in corporate America. I worked on what is now Ground Zero in the World Financial Center in New York for Merrill Lynch, and I was on the mortgage-backed securities trading floor. I started as an intern, and then I worked for them full-time when I graduated college. And when I graduated college, my best friend at the time said, "Oh, well, why don't we get a real estate license just for, like, can I say this, for shits and giggles?" Was what she said, and I said, "Okay, fine. Let's go do that." But I never actually sold in New York. I worked full time, but reading The Art of the Deal was kind of like my push into real estate. And I decided to actually become an appraiser because it was something I could do on the weekends. So I worked full time, did appraisals on the weekends, and absolutely loved it. So I have always been tied to real estate, I feel like, from day one. And when we relocated to Atlanta back in January of 96, it's like, okay, this is great. I get to be a stay-at-home mom, and I want to raise my daughter, who was not quite 2 yet when we moved. And after 90 days, I was going bananas because I went from working a full corporate job, listing appraisals on the weekends, to being in a new city with no family, really no friends, because it was a corporate relocation. They're like, General Motors was like, okay, you're in Atlanta in 90 days. So we came in a weekend, we drove around for 3 days. We picked a lot, built a house, and crossed our fingers. And so then I had my license transferred. There was reciprocity, and I had my license transferred, worked for a company. I don't think they exist anymore in Atlanta. And then dabbled here and there because what was most important to me was raising my daughter at that point in time. But I needed to get out of the house. So did a couple of sales, didn't do a whole lot. And then we started buying investment properties. My next door neighbor had, done a weekend course here in Atlanta. And he's still around. John Adams has been around for eons. And we're like, okay, maybe we should do this. So we bought a couple of rentals, didn't really do much else. And then I jumped back in 2003. I had my other daughter at that point, and so I worked around their schedules. And 2010, I think it was, I was buying foreclosures at the courthouse steps with a friend of mine. I was helping them facilitate purchasing at the steps. They were doing fix and flip. And then we did a boot camp, one of the big guru boot camps out in Texas in 2013. And that was kind of my foray into the fix and flip space, the hard money space, cash flow properties. 2013 was kind of what really catapulted us to where we are now. But yeah, technically I've been a licensed agent for a very long time.
So what is it that really attracted you to the idea of investing in real estate? What was kind of that focus for you? What did you want to do with it?
So in 2013, after we did that boot camp, we were all in this big Facebook group. And a couple of months later, probably 4 or 5 months later, I started having people reach out to me saying, hey, we want to invest in the Atlanta market. And I was just because of my background, I started posting information as to why people's deals didn't make sense, right? Like, your deal doesn't make sense because you're not taking into account carrying costs. Your deal doesn't make sense because you're not taking into account realtor commissions that you're going to have to pay on the other end. Okay, you're private lending. You need to make sure your position is secure. So I built an organic following without even realizing what I was doing, because someone called me and like, this is awesome. All of your content is organic. And I said, what does that mean?
Yeah,
And
2013, that's different than today in terms of organic. Yeah.
Right. But even back then, I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Right. And so I kind of became the point person. And I had investors at one point. It was 2014, 2015. I don't remember at this point, but I was managing 5 projects. I had out-of-state investors that I helped them acquire the property. I managed the renovation. I did the design finishes, and then I put the property on the market for them. They never saw the property other than pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was coming out of the closings and I'm looking at like what they made compared to what I made, I'm like, shoot, I should be doing this because I helped them. I didn't help them. I found the property for them. It got to where I had built the trust that I was selling deals, off-market deals, via text message. Here's the purchase price. Here's the ARV, the after repair value. Here's your budget. And they were buying I got deals done in 20 minutes because I had built that trust and that integrity. And the good part of it being an agent, I created my listing inventory. So I had an extra $2.5 million in listing inventory, that year. But I said, that's what got me to flip the switch. And I'm going, okay, like I'm making, 10, 12 grand, which is good money, but they're making like 75, 100, 125. Shoot, we need to be doing this. So that was kind of my real push into the investing space.
And I think a lot of agents are short-sighted in their thinking. Like they treat it like a sales job. I've talked about this, previously, where it's like they just think, well, I do sales in this other industry or I do sales in real estate. Mm-hmm. And so if I can't cut it in real estate, I'm going to go back to my other sales job. And it's like, no, you're sitting on a gold mine here of opportunity. And you have to figure out how to turn those sales techniques into building wealth. And like you said, it's just as simple as you look at what the commission is, which people outside of real estate would say, oh my gosh, realtors get paid a ton of money. What do they do for that? And you're looking at it saying, man, I'm not making nearly as much as what I could be making if I was on the investor side. And so it's being smart enough and logical enough to turn that sales mindset into a wealth building mindset.
Yeah, 100%. And I updated the stats in my book, but I think it was 2020 stats. And this was for Atlanta. The average real estate agent made, it was either 44 or 47,000. And the average real estate investor in Atlanta made 123,000. That is triple the amount of money. And that's crazy. And I'm not saying you have to go be a full-time investor, but if you could do, and I never did like 100 deals a year, but if you can do 2 or 3 a year, shoot, that's great money. If you keep it for cash flow, then you're building wealth and you have passive income. There's just so much more. There's just so much more.
Yeah. Well, because you look at it, fixing and flipping is one strategy that people use. Sometimes people that do fix and flips, view it as in some ways it's a sales job. It's a higher price point, which is nice. But in some ways you don't have any trailing, residual income coming from that, because if I don't do a flip, I don't make money. And so that's where you have to be smart enough to think through, okay, sometimes when I talk with investors, it's like you have to let the property speak to you of what's the strategy here. It could be a fix and flip. It could be a buy and hold. It could be you flip it and decide to hold it. But you do want to have your mindset on some sort of holdings long term where you're building cash flow, because you can flip, but if the flip doesn't happen, or if you go on vacation and the flip stop, Now you've got to figure out how to keep that income coming in. And so some sort of buy and hold strategy to build cash flow is the long-term wealth. And so it's having that mindset of going from sales to potentially larger sales with a flip to hold to build that residual income.
Yeah, and the one thing I want especially now, right? For the most part, we're all in shifting markets. Atlanta is still, in my opinion, we have so many people moving here. We have 2 months of inventory. There's like nothing for sale, especially in the suburbs. It's identifying opportunities. And, most real estate agents are conditioned to the point that the only way they're going to make money is by putting a sign in the yard. Mm-hmm. And nothing frustrates me more than, real estate agents like, well, yeah, let's go put it on the market, and not listening to their clients. Because I'm in a Facebook group where, there's a couple of us that our job is to find solutions for our clients. And putting a sign in the yard is not always, what best serves the client. And I've seen people say, well, there's one person I'm thinking of in particular, like, well, you just screwed the seller. And I'm like, if the seller told you what they wanted and you gave the seller what they wanted, why are you arguing? It's not up to you to tell the seller what's in their best interest. And I'll give you an example. Right before the pandemic hit, and I have the case study in my book, because that's the other thing. People are like, nobody ever tells you how to do it. I had met with somebody at this point. So that was 2020. So we're in 23 now. So it's probably been 5 or 6 years. I had a conversation with this woman. I met her at a party. She called me up. We're friends on Facebook. And she had a property that she wanted to sell. I went out there. I looked at the property. I went through it with her. And she's like, well, what do you think? I said, well, let me run comps. And she was $20,000 upside down. Okay. She owed 90. It was worth 70. And I said, look, is your tenant a pain? She says, no. I said, is she ever late? She said, no. She goes, she's a great tenant. She's been here for years. I just don't know that I want to be a landlord. And I said, look, even if I listed it for free, you're coming to the table with 20 grand. If she's not a pain, then leave your tenant alone and just are you cash flowing? She said, yes. I said, then keep it cash flowing. All right. She called me January of 2020. And she said, hey, Lorraine, do you remember that property that I had? And I said, I do. And she said, the guy next door just put lipstick on a pig and sold for 221. And I said to her, okay, well, let me come back out. Let me go look at it. Let me run some comps and I'll get back with you. I hadn't talked to this woman in 2 or 3 years, like at all. She'd been following me on Facebook. And I said, all right, he did more than put lipstick on a pig, but I think, all right, maybe we can get you 110, if not 210 rather, as opposed to 221. And I said, or maybe I'll buy it. And so I went out there and I looked at it and I had explained to her, my favorite strategy is buying subject to. So subject to the existing mortgage. And we went out there and we talked and we went through the property and she's like, what are you thinking? And I had explained to her what subject to was. And she said, I think I want to do the thing you talked about. Yep. And I said, all right, fine. The long story short, we talked. I went through it. She goes, I was thinking 5. And I said, well, let me see. In my mind, thinking she wanted 5 grand. And she turned around, she looked at me, she's like, ooh. She reminded me of Willis from Different Strokes. What are you talking about, Lorraine? With like that kind of deep voice. Mm-hmm. And I said, she goes, no, I want to pay you 5 grand to take over the property. Mike, I was floored. Like I had heard of people paying people to take over a property, but I always thought it was total BS. And that's when I stopped and I looked at her and I asked her, what is going on? Because like, look, I can put it on the market. Like we can get you some money. She said, I just want to walk away. She said, God told me it's time to sell. I don't want to displace my tenant. That was her main thing, was her tenant had been such a good tenant. She didn't want to displace her tenant. And she just wanted to walk away. She didn't care. And so I acquired a cash flowing property where and I told her, I said, I can't take 5 grand. I'll do 2,500. I acquired a cash flowing property, got $2,500 in the process. And now that property is worth about $100,000 more than that, probably about $150,000 more than what I took it over for of the mortgage. So no, you don't always have to have a lot of money. And I solved her problem. She was as happy as could be, to the point that she called me every month and said, do you want my other property? And I kept saying, no, it's too far. No, it needs 20 grand in rehab. No, it's too far. And I did finally buy it a year later, in which she offered to pay the mortgage for 6 months while I rehabbed it. And she replaced the stolen plumbing. and she replaced the HVAC that was stolen. And what else did she do? She upgraded the electrical. You never know what motivates or drives people.
One thing that I'm thinking is, as you're sharing that story, because I hear a lot of people, talk about you can get into real estate investing with little to no money down, which is true. And in some ways too, like you earned that opportunity because of the conversations you have, the experience you have. And so, somebody that wants to get into investing in real estate brand new, that gal's not going to come to them and be like, hey, you take this over. It's because you're seen as a professional in the industry. You've consulted with her, helped her. So for people listening that are looking to get into real estate investing for little or no money down, you have to earn some of those breaks, and it takes time to get those things. Yes, you can have that opportunity. You might have, that gal's relative might have been able to help out. But it's because you've positioned yourself as somebody that helps investors, a go-to resource for people, that they trust you, and you've built that relational capital where you can get those opportunities. And so it can happen early in your career. It can happen later in your career, but those types of things do come along.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely. And that was the other thing. Like when I sat down, I actually stopped and I asked her, I said, what's going on? I said, I know you have a son in the military. I said, I know your grandson is probably 7 or 8 by now. And she said, yeah, my son's in the Air Force. My grandson's 7 turning 8. How do you remember all of this stuff? And I think that's the other key thing. As real estate agents, at the end of the day, we're there to help people. And sometimes we just need to shut up and listen to people's pain points, what drives them, right? What motivates them. And I think that's the other key. I mean, my business is 100% word of mouth, all of it. I've never bought leads. I don't pay for leads. I don't believe in them. I don't do it. So yeah, you're right. But even as new agents, if you have relationships with people that you have started to build, it's serve them. I came from a place of service. I told her what I thought was in her best interest all those years ago, and wasn't worried about, let's list it. That wasn't the right thing to do. And I think so often real estate agents get caught up in that desperation of, I need a sale, that they think more about, the commission check than they do about serving people.
And another thing to think about, because I have a similar story. Well, not a story where somebody paid us to take on a property, but helping them think through their solution. We had a residential client that came to us looking to sell a townhouse, and she wanted to move up into a larger property. And the agent on our team said, hey, instead of selling it, have you thought about renting it out? And could you afford, the new mortgage on your new property and still rent this property out? So she went through the process. We were able to figure it out. And so she ended up not selling and holding it. Well, fast forward a couple years, this was just after COVID. Fast forward a couple years, she's cash flowing about $1,000 a month, because she had a mortgage. She bought the property like 20 years ago. So she had a low mortgage. She had a great rate. What she's able to rent it out for now, like I said, she's making about $1,000 a month, and she now has her new property. And so she reached back out to us within the last month or two and said, hey, this is a pretty good thing. What's the next thing I can do now? And I think that's the thing too, that people, when I talk about agents being short-sighted, is they think about that one sale. This time we still got the buy side. We didn't help with the listing side because they held it, but now she's coming back saying, hey, what do I do next? And that's the cool thing about investors, is they might want to buy once every year or 2 or 3, or if you get somebody great, they might want to buy 10 properties in a year. And so the more you help them build wealth, the more how you help them earn income on their properties, the more opportunities you have to help them as a client.
100%. That you're exactly right. And because they will come back, they'll remember what you did for them, and they will come back. And exactly to your point, some of those investors that I had, back in, like I said, 2014, 2015, they didn't do one deal with me. They did 5, 6, 7, 8 deals with me, and they kept coming back. And she has since come back. She now has another property, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm good for now, because it's just too far. And for me, it doesn't work. I like to be able to drive to my stuff where I'm not driving 2.5 hours. But I referred her to someone else, and that's what it's all about. And then she has sent other people to me, and it's building that relationship capital 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, the worst thing that happens in the future is you have to refer that out to somebody else, but you're in control of your business and you can make those decisions. If you want to drive 2 hours, great. If you don't want to drive 2 hours, that's fine. But helping people ultimately is what builds and grows your business in that way. You've earned that trust and they still come back to you. And yeah, you get a referral commission out of it if you want to, and you don't do any new work for that property, but it's because of the trust you earned, they came to you.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And so that's, that's a big piece of it. And that's a way that real estate agents can identify opportunities, where it's a win-win for both sides, right? It was a win for her because she got to walk away and move to Florida. And it was a win for me because not only did I get one cash flowing property, I got two cash flowing properties. And, she still reaches out to me. Like I said, she has the other one and I'm like, no, it's just too far. But I've had a couple of those scenarios. And, even another one, I had gone on a listing appointment and I told the guy, I said, look, I can put it on the market. He's like, I just want a cash offer. I'm like, but I can get you 30 grand more. He's like, I don't care. Whatever you can get above X number, you can put in your pocket. And I said, well, that's not how it works. We can't do that here in Georgia. I think somebody said it's called a net listing. And, I wound up getting a hedge fund to buy it because that's the other thing. Once you get in the investment space, just connect with as many people as you can. Got him what he wanted, gave him more than what he wanted. At the end of the day, I still got paid. I still got paid because the hedge fund paid me. So it was still a win-win. It's just understanding there are more ways to do things, than just putting a sign in the yard.
And the other thing that I've learned being in the investing space too is not everybody, I had spent 6 years in residential real estate and it was always, and we were focused on listings and it's always top dollar, top dollar, top dollar, top dollar, and realizing that, yeah, not everybody's motivated by top dollar. Would people like to have a lot of money? Yes. But a lot of these investors, it is solving problems. Like your previous example, she wanted to be able to walk away. The mental strain of managing a property, even if it's a tenant that's paying, there's still mental strain there. There's still stress there that they don't want to deal with. And so they're okay giving up some money. We would all think top dollar, but that's not always the case. It's about problem solving and finding solutions to help people. And like you said, in this case, yeah, maybe not everybody wants to list a property and get it all spick and span and ready to go to show. They just want to be able to take an easier offer for less. And so that's sometimes it takes a while to, having been so ingrained in residential real estate about top dollar that, yeah, people aren't always motivated by that. They're motivated by ease, simplicity, not having to go public with listings. And that's where you can find good deals as well. But they're just as happy because you're providing them solutions to their problems.
Yeah. I mean, in this case that, the house needed some work. He had gone through a nasty divorce. His words to me were, I'm embarrassed. I'll never forget this. His words to me were, I am embarrassed to have people come through my house. That was his biggest concern. And when we got done and we got out of the closing, he was so happy. And he said, you've helped me start a new chapter in my life that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I've left some bad memories behind. And I'm glad to be out of the house and moving to a new place. So you never know what drives someone. And it's important. It's important to have those conversations and find out what's truly, driving them. Like I said, he didn't care about the money. Didn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so for those of you listening, just think through these opportunities. Like, yeah, take your normal mindset about being a residential agent and just ask some other questions here of what would happen if I started to do help people in this way and think with a long-term mentality versus just thinking about somebody called me up, they want to list their house and I want to make a sale. But how can you have this long-term mindset and you'll be able to accumulate some of these assets over time, find these good deals. And it doesn't have to be, hey, I was a residential agent and now I only work with investors. It can happen over time. You're just kind of picking up little pieces along the way. And soon your journey looks a lot different because you've become an investor. Maybe you've made larger returns, or you have some cash flowing properties and you have some residual income coming in. And one of the things that I've always been passionate about too is I talk to my agents about running into the wind versus running and having the wind at your back. As you start to pick up some of these assets, now the wind's at your back. So in an economic challenging time where sales go down, you have something else to stand on instead of just your sales. And it's not going to necessarily happen overnight, but a little by little, 2, 3, 4 years from now, your financial situation will look a lot different than it does today if you pick up some of these assets and start building wealth by investing in real estate and finding these deals versus just being only focused on sales.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'm having more and more of those conversations. As we're in a shifting market, I had these conversations when buyers can get under contract. I had an agent who begged me for my clients to take her client's VA offer, because this was their sixth house and no one would accept the VA offer. And she was sharing with me that her husband wanted her to retire and she couldn't. And I said, well, why not? And she said, because this is my income, I have nothing else. So I asked her the question, because we had become friendly. And I said, well, do you own any other assets? She goes, I own my house. And I said, well, do you have anything else? And she said, no. So here's a woman who is 65, because I asked her, I have no problem asking questions. And I tell people all the time, you don't have to answer it. If you feel I'm being insensitive, I'm sorry, but because I think people understand I'm coming from a place of trying to help them. She said, no, I'm 65 years old. Her husband, I think, was 68 or 70. And she said, I have no retirement. So here's someone who's 65 years old, who's staring at, maybe Social Security, which isn't much. And her words were, I can't retire. And that's just heartbreaking. That's just heartbreaking for me.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about turning your passion into writing a book. There's a lot of people in real estate that have books or have written books, and people are probably curious. So talk about kind of turning, hey, I've got this excitement, I've got this passion and idea that I want to share. How does that turn into your book, Flip the Switch?
Oh gosh. So it was another conversation with a colleague of mine. I don't mention her by name. I've told her that she's in my book, but I don't think she believes me. And I was having a conversation with a colleague, and it was July. I remember it was July of 2019. And, I had just spoken at an event. I had a law firm actually said, hey, can you come present your Flip the Switch? And I said, yeah, sure. Flip the Switch wasn't a book yet. Flip the Switch was just an idea. And I did the presentation. It went really, really well. And at the time, the KW was having their bold training in the room next door, because I remember walking out. I'm like, what are all these Keller Williams agents doing here? And I was at KW for 10 years and saw my old team leader and, did the presentation. And so at one point I stopped and I said, okay, they're in there learning how to prospect. You're in here learning how to build wealth and passive income. So a couple of days later, I spoke to my friend who, same thing. She said, girl, I'm going to have to sell houses until I'm 70. And it kind of blew my mind. And I said, why? You're this is someone who's a $10+ million producer, right? So great income. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? She was complaining about these buyers and she had been out for a while. And she said, I have back problems and my back hurts, but I'm going to have to sell houses till I'm 70. She said, I'll be 60 soon, because her birthday was the following month. Same thing. I have no retirement. And I sat there and I stopped and I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, I don't have anything. And that's when I stopped and I said to myself, okay, I'm not a $10 million producer, never have been, don't think I ever will be. That's just not my passion. And that's when I realized I at least have passive income coming in that can help supplement if I'm not selling real estate.
Real estate agents, are you tired of letting the busyness of your real estate business get in the way of your real estate investing goals and your financial future? I'm excited to announce that we've created the Real Freedom Investor Agent Tribe to help you. We've got a ton of content, educational tools to help accelerate your learning curve and get you on the right path to hit your investing goals. We also have a mastermind tribe of people just like you, agents that want to grow their own portfolio and encourage you and cheer you on along the way, as well as some private one-on-one coaching. So go to realfreedom.com, click on the store, you'll see the options there. We're so excited to be able to help you. I've priced it super low so price can't get in the way, but did want to have some skin in the game for you to help with that accountability. So go check it out, realfreedom.com, click on the store. We're excited to connect with you and excited for you to connect with your tribe of real estate agents investing, trying to build their financial freedom.
That one conversation was my push. I literally sat down and I wrote my book. There was no ghostwriter. There was no pre-format. I sat down and I wrote my book. I wrote it in about a week. I shared the very first subject to that I had done. That's how I got my lake house. And I just shared my stories. And, it's kind of in what are the tools that we as real estate agents already have? And why is it important that real estate agents understand? Because the other thing that frustrates me is if I see an MLS listing and it says calling all investors $10,000 below, appraised price, that doesn't work for an investor. And it was kind of those other conversations as well. Real estate agents don't think on the other side of the investor with paying the closing costs when they're buying, right? Maybe paying closing costs or seller concessions at closing, realtor commissions, holding costs. You've got to pay the contractors. You have to have the water run, and all of these other expenses that investors incur, specifically on fix and flips. And so I kind of go through that and I break it down and I'm like, this is why investors buy at 65 cents or 70 cents on the dollar, and really explain it. It's short. I tell people it's tiny but mighty because it's only like 85 pages long, but it's straight. Here's what I did. Here's what here's what you should do. And like I said, I think I have 4 or 5 case studies in there on how I've acquired some of the things that I have acquired. And on the other one was when my daughter went to college. I don't like paying other people rent.
Mhm.
And my daughter hated being in a dorm room. And what we did was we did a fix and flip in Hilton Head. We took that cash. We bought a townhome, moved her out of the dorms, and I took an expense and I made it an asset. Took her out of the dorms. We got a 3-bedroom, rented the other 2 rooms, and now I'm cash flowing and I have money coming in instead of money going out.
Mhm. Well, that's another good idea too, just about thinking differently. I spoke with an investor, maybe it was like 2 or 3 months ago, where she purchased a property when her child went to college, and slowly over time she accumulated another one, another one, and another one. And I think she ended up with 7 properties. And so she was not urgent to sell, but she's like, she said, in all honesty, this were her words, like, I don't really need the money. She was renting out seven houses by the room. They were already booked. So this was early 2023. They were already booked through the school year of 2024, already had leases in place. And she's like, yeah, I'm kind of looking for probably about this number, because honestly, I don't really need the money. She was just looking to walk away. It wasn't a hassle. She had created a pretty good system around it. But those are the things where one property leads to 2 properties, leads to 3 properties, and you have to start to think longer. She probably didn't set out to say, I'm going to own 7 units and it's going to be around this college and here's how much money I'm going to make. But it was just organically, but it's because she thought differently about something that opportunity presented itself.
Yeah, no, 100%, and we still have it. She's still there now. Now we want to sell it and move it into something else, but it's just really, it's flipping the switch. I mean, that's why I called it. It's really thinking differently. I mentioned with you before we hopped on, like now I'm in the self-storage space. Why? Because I don't like paying. I used to stage our own fix and flips. So I have 2 storage units full of furniture, which I keep saying I'm going to get rid of, but my kids are like, no, like I want it when I have my own place. And I don't like paying for a storage unit. Like it kills me that I'm paying someone else for space. So I got involved in the self-storage space about a year ago. Because I want to get to the point that I'm like, okay, I'll keep a unit for myself. And the facility I have under contract now, I'm not purchasing it, but it came about because I networked. I joined a mastermind. And so now also because I'm a real estate agent, I get the buy side commission, plus part of the mastermind is I get a finder's fee and I get ownership. I get equity. So that's a slam dunk. I mean, that more than paid for a mastermind. And that's kind of the other thing that I think is very important. I was always against spending a lot of money to join some of these higher level masterminds. And I finally tracked some people, this one specific one that I wanted to go to. And I tracked these people for a year because I couldn't go. And I'm like, okay, this one's doing well, this one's doing well, that one's doing well. And I bit the bullet and I paid several thousands of dollars and I went. And the level of people in the room was completely different. And it was from one conversation, one relationship that I built from there not quite a year and a half ago, that now, I mean, it's a $5 million deal. You do the math on the commission, plus a finder's fee, plus equity. it was a slam dunk.
And that's the other thing too, because as I'm learning new things in the investment space, yeah, I've spent money on masterminds or coaching groups or things like that, and realizing that for me, I want to get further faster. Sometimes people are like, well, you can watch any video on YouTube about that. Well, you could, but it's also the people, right? And those people can help connect the dots for you more quickly. You could go watch some videos on YouTube about buying a self-storage unit, but it's the connections with those people that are going to be able to say, well, no, here's how you do it. Boom, boom, boom. Or introduce you to the right people, the right lenders, be able to make that deal go from open to close quickly. That's the value of being in the room with those people. So I fully agree, investing in your education is really important to be able to grow your learning curve so that you can get those opportunities.
Yeah, and you're paying to compress time. I mean, that's what I call it, right? You have the time or you have the money. You're paying to compress time, and you're paying so that you don't make the same mistakes that some of these other folks, made. And I think the other key component is, for me, at the end of the day, yes, it's about going to an event and it's about learning. But if I come away, I always try to make one or two impactful connections with people, whether the content was good, whether the content was bad. If I made one or two really great connections with people, you never know where those conversations are going to lead you.
Absolutely. I believe you're the right person away from completely transforming your life. It's going to take time. That person might come sooner, that person might come later, or it might be multiple people in smaller chunks. But that's the beauty of networking, is you find that right relationship where that person can open up those doors, and yeah, your life can be completely transformed just by that one connection that you made.
100%.
It might take a lot of people to get there, and you don't know which one is going to be that one. But two, I think I'm purposeful in trying to stay in touch with people too, because you make a connection, you go to a conference, and how many times it's like, oh, great, let's stay in touch, and you don't. And
Right.
so it's probably the onus is going to be on you to keep chirping away, to keep building that connection. Maybe if it's that person that you've identified and said, hey, here's the person I know I want to connect with and build a deeper relationship, you're going to have to reach out multiple times. They're not just going to be like, they might for you be like, oh, Lorraine, that gal was awesome, I have to stay in touch with her. But a lot of times it's you consistently reaching out over time and just checking in is how that relationship can strengthen too.
Yeah, I think checking in, and also, like I said, being genuine in your conversations and coming from a place of, what can I do to help you? And that's kind of what even in my emails to people, it's like, how can I help you? What can I do to help you? Because it's a two-way street. And there's nothing that I hate more than sometimes a lot of people, and they're like, I just want to pick your brain. I just want to pick your brain. And sometimes it's like, okay, you can pick my brain for a little bit, but then there needs to be an exchange, at some point in time. And so I always try to approach people from, how can we collaborate? What can I do to help you get further in your business? And I think that that's also, it's not all about me. It's not me. It's what can we do together so we can grow together?
So for people that want to learn more about you, learn more about your book, Flip the Switch, how can they do so?
Yeah, so my book, Flip the Switch, is on Amazon. And like I said, it was a passion project that I wrote. I'm not going to get rich off my $4 from Amazon. It was to truly empower real estate agents to see the tools that they've already got. So I'm very easy to find. My non-realtor website is LorraineBeato.com. My phone number's out there. My email is LorraineBeato@gmail.com. All of my handles on social media are Lorraine Beato. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And what seems simple for agents sometimes is a little bit more complex. It might be natural for some people to think in this direction. For some people, it just takes more time to see those potential doors opening in their life. But absolutely, being in real estate is an entrepreneurial playground where there's just a ton of opportunity. And so I really appreciate you helping people connect the dots where maybe they haven't connected them themselves, and really help them out, help them build wealth and find financial freedom and cover themselves in a market downturn of sales, to have a little bit of residual income coming in, or you're still building wealth along the way, even when you might have a tough sales year in real estate. So thank you so much for helping other people and helping real estate agents become investors.
No, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much and best of luck. And if you have any questions, please reach out to Lorraine. You are just a wealth of information. So thank you so much.